Alright, hey guys, how you doing? I got a build video today. It's a new coil that well, it's not really, I don't know if you could call it a new coil. It's just a bunch of a bunch of concepts kind of mixed together. I'm calling it stapled tiger wire. The staple coil is a coil that Ryan Wellinghoff, also known as Squid Dude on Instagram, the guy is an artist. He does some amazing coils, and what he did was he stacked a bunch of ribbon wire together, like 10 pieces I think was his first one, and then he stuck it in a drill and wrapped 36 gauge around it. And the reason that it's called the staple coil is because it looks like a row of staples that you like load a stapler with. And he's done a bunch of variations of twisting it, putting extra wires in there before he wraps the Clapton around it. Does some amazing stuff with it. And so I was just kind of messing around with some of those ideas, and at first I tried like a single piece of ribbon wire, wrapped Clapton with 36 gauge, or I think I was using 40 or something. Maybe it's, I don't know, doesn't matter. But and that didn't work out so well because it was so thin, it just twisted a lot as I was trying to wrap it. And so what I did is I just took one piece of ribbon wire and I folded it over, and then I was able to Clapton that up pretty well, and I decided, now that I have this Clapton piece of ribbon wire, couldn't I just use it in other builds just like you would with other builds that require ribbon wire? So the first one I tried was and I'm just going to call it stapled, whatever the other coil was, just so it doesn't get all overly complicated for no reason. But so the first one I made was a stapled tiger wire, and it's just that two pieces of ribbon wire Clapton with 36 twisted with a piece of round wire, just like you would make tiger wire with. And I was really impressed with that flavor. But if you think about it, anything you use ribbon wire in, you could also use in this build, like the tidal wire build that I posted quite a few months ago. Also can use this, and that turned out really well as well. Plenty of flavor, and it looks really nice. And then helix wire, where you have normally just two pieces of round wire twisted, and then you take another much smaller gauge and take it up through the grooves. You could do, instead of using two round pieces of wire, you can use one of these 2-ply staple coil and then a piece of round wire, twist those up, and then take a smaller wire through the grooves. And I'll have examples of these in the macro shots that I'm going to show before I get into the build video. But what I'm just going to do the build video on is the stapled tiger coil, just because I found that that's so far out of the different combinations that I've added this to, that really has a huge improvement in flavor, and that's what I got in here right now. And I bought an IPv3 because it looked awesome. It goes up to, I upgraded the firmware, so it goes up to 165 watts, which is honestly more than enough for me. And so it's just nice to have that extra control over the vape. I mean, I saw the Sigelli 100 watt, and I saw, the IPv2, and I was just like, on a regular basis, for me personally, I'm always over 100 watts. Almost always. So that's why I saw 150 watts, and I was like, I don't really go over 150 very often, but it is nice to have the option. So it just spilled juice all over it though. There we go. So I got it set to 120 right now. The coil dualed, I think it was 5 wraps, came out to 0.16 ohms, is what the IPv3 is saying, at 120 watts. It's like a really nice, warm, flavorful vape. I like it a lot. It's kind of the similar warmth to like a zipper coil. So the ribbon wire doesn't act as a heatsink very much with that 36 around it. Just probably because it's in such close proximity to that ribbon, there's not like a juice channel for the vapor to shoot out of. So it's about the same warmth as a zipper coil, which is a pretty warm vape. And the flavor, I mean, it's really good. Yep. I've been loving this coil for the last, I don't know, it hasn't been that long, a few days, but I've been really impressed with it. And it keeps up with wicking even at 165 watts, which I'll do just for the heck of it here. But it's more enjoyable, like the 115 watt to 120 watt range for me personally. I know a lot of people don't vape that high wattage. Let me just crank it up real quick though. So 165 watts, 5.15 volts. I mean, it keeps up with wicking, which is pretty impressive. Not every coil can just keep up at 165 watts like that. But yeah. No drip tip. It's not a bad vape at that hot, it's just not quite as comfortable as like 115, 120. Anyway, I'll go ahead and get into the macro videos, the macro shots, and oh, I forgot almost to give a shout out to, I just posted a picture of this coil on Instagram, and without any description or anything. What's his name? This guy's Instagram is Kappa-Nerd. His name's Jeremiah Hunter, and he just did it. He seems like he's really into coils right now, which is awesome. To see somebody who's putting this much energy into it. Yeah, he already did the tidal wire, the stapled tidal wire, and everything. Without any instruction, which is pretty cool. So, anyway, that's about it. Let's get into the macro shots. Okay, this is the coil that I'm going to be doing the build video on. That is 2 pieces of 1/32 inch nichrome ribbon wire wrapped in 36 gauge Canthal and twisted together with 24 gauge nichrome 80. And I'm going to go ahead and fire this up. And I'm firing it at 4.13 volts, so it's going to be similar performance on a mechanical mod with fully charged battery. So it lights up nice and evenly. You notice the 24 gauge lights up first before that ribbon wire, and so basically what you got is the ribbon wire is acting almost as a wick for the juice. Holding on to that juice, and I'm guessing that's probably why you have some of that enhanced flavor. Is just because you have that textured ribbon wire that heats up itself, but not quite as quickly as that 24 gauge nichrome 80. So you have these capillaries just holding onto the juice, almost like a stainless steel mesh, I guess, with all that extra texture. And one thing that I didn't like about regular tiger wire is that in all of these areas with the ribbon wire, normally on tiger wire is a flat surface. So you have the round wire and the juice channels between the round and the ribbon, but the ribbon wire itself is flat on tiger wire, and so when that heats up, juice pops off of it, and it gets harder and harder for juice to go and recover those flat areas once it's already hot, because it's hot enough to have the juice boiling off. And so that's why I think tiger wire has such good vapor production, is because that part stays hotter than the rest. But I feel better having better juice contact with the entire coil while I'm vaping. And so this, the 36 gauge running around that and going underneath, creates juice channels underneath that between the round wire and the ribbon wire for juice to flow, and so that the whole coil can stay fully saturated the entire time while vaping. I'll fire it up one more time, but that's the general concept of the coil. This is the next one that I tried. I had made just a stapled tiger wire, and I decided to take a 32 gauge nichrome 80 and fill up those gaps there between the twists. That's firing at just over 4 volts. I dualed this one. It came out to 0.18, That's 26 gauge twisted with the 0.5, 2 strands of the 0.5 Canthal ribbon wire. They've been Clapton with 36 gauge, and then the 32 gauge fill in the gaps. A little overcomplicated. Works pretty good though. But honestly, it's a little bit, just adds a bit of warmth, in my opinion, unnecessarily. And I'm pretty sure that the round wire coming through there, the round wire, it probably doesn't impede too much, but I'm thinking that it might impede the juice from flowing in under that ribbon wire a little bit. So if anything, it might be a hindrance rather than a help. It does look nice though. The next variation that I tried, that's 2 pieces of 26 gauge, and that ribbon wire is 2 strands of 0.5 millimeter Canthal wrapped in 36 gauge. And I was just wanting to see what it would look like with multiple round wires twisted with this wire together. And the performance wasn't really there for me. I mean, it's a good vape, just not quite as nice, in my opinion, as that stapled Tiger wire. But 0.31 ohms, single coil, and this is firing at 4.13 volts. This one is a stapled tidal wire, and so what you have is 4 strands of 32 gauge nichrome 80 that I twisted, and then I reverse twisted that with that the 2-ply, I think it's 0.5 ribbon if I can remember right, and reverse twisted those together so you get that tidal wire effect. This one came out to 0.5 ohms. You're just firing just over 4 volts. And I haven't beta tested this enough to really give a review on it, but it's one of my favorite looking coils that I've made in a long time. Need some stuff for this build. Some ribbon wire, and what I'm going to be using is Jacobs Online Nichrome 60 ribbon, 1/32 inch by 0.0035 inches. The reason I'm using this instead of like regular ribbon wire from Temco is because every time I've been getting this Temco wire, when I pull it off of the spool, it's warped. I used to buy it and it was really straight, but now every time I pull it off, I'll just show you what I'm talking about. See how there's like a bend to this stuff? Sideways, and so when you go to fold it in half, it has a really weird curve to it. That's why I'm not going to be using the Temco ribbon, is just because it's been causing me problems, and I've been disappointed. I bought a whole bunch of different sizes, hoping that it wouldn't be like that, but it seems like their tension is off when they're spooling these up, and it's warping the ribbon wire a little bit. That's why I'm using this stuff from Jacobs Online. And it's pretty inexpensive. I think it's like 10 bucks for 100 feet or something. Then you'll also need some round wire. I'm going to be using 24 gauge nichrome 80. You could also use 24 gauge Canthal, 26 gauge, 22 gauge, whatever you want. If you get down to like the 28 gauge, it's going to get a little bit too thin and be really difficult to twist up. So I'd suggest 26 and higher for this. And then also some 36 gauge wire. I wouldn't suggest going any larger than 36 gauge. You could try it with 34, 32. You're probably going to have a real hard time doing it, just because the ribbon wire is going to be twisting up as you're trying to put this other wire around it. I'm using Jacobs Online Nichrome 60 because I ran out of Temco's 36 gauge Canthal, and I have some on the way though. Honestly, I prefer working with the Canthal. You'll also need some clippers, some pliers, something to wrap your coil on, and of course a drill, unless you have hundreds of hours to wrap 36 gauge around this wire. So basically I'm just going to take off a piece of the 24 gauge, and that should be enough. it off and then just throw it into the drill here. Get it right in the center of the chuck, and I'm just going to straighten it out. That's enough. Set that aside for later. I'm going to grab some of this ribbon wire. And this stuff's pretty thin. The 1/32 inch is probably pretty close to a 0.5 millimeter ribbon canthal, like in metric measurements. And I'm just going to pull off 2 lengths of this. Clip it off. Hopefully I can get this back in without taking too much time. And then with the ribbon wire, I'm going to go ahead and clip off of this part that got a little bit messed up. And all I do is fold it in half. And to get it perfectly folded in half, what you can do is kind of support it on the edges as you work your way up. That way you're holding it vertically so you can get you can keep support on it while you're trying to get this aligned over here. And put a little like dimple in it, and then try to give it sideways or vertical support on those edges as you go down, just to get it aligned. And once you have it aligned, then I just pull it out like this. And crimp the end with some pliers. And the reason that I fold it over like that rather than just using 2 pieces of ribbon wire is because I'm going to stick these loose ends into the drill, and that way when we're spinning it up and putting that 36 gauge on, it doesn't just flap around on the other side. It keeps it kind of secured. And yeah, the reason I don't just do a single piece of ribbon wire is because it's real flimsy, it doesn't have much support, and it gets pretty hard to wrap wire around it. And I'm actually going to cut off a portion of this, because I notice when it's that full length, it gets really hard to deal with in the drill as well at the beginning. And so the length about, I don't know, this long. And I'll just go ahead and get this set up in the drill here. And what I like to do, you'll notice in the drill that it has these slots, and since the ribbon wire is flat, I like to stick it in between a couple of those slots as close to the center as possible, but still in the flat area, and crimp it down like that. Because if you put it in the very center, it can squeeze the wire and cause it to warp and change shape, and it makes it twist up a whole bunch at the beginning. So you basically just want this as flat as possible with both of these ribbons in parallel. I'm going to grab the 36 and show you what I do for this build, since you don't need a huge amount of it, to straighten it out. Okay, so I got the 36 gauge wire, and to straighten it out, what I've been doing recently is you'll notice if you pull this out, say that much, and let go of it, it's kind of springy and weird. And if you pull a large length of this out, it's easy to tangle up. But if you just grab this and just give it a little pull, you can almost feel it stretch, and then that straightens it. And so that's what I've been doing recently. Instead of tying it to like a doorknob, like I said in the fused Clapton video, I'll just grab out a length, give it a tug till I feel it stretch a little bit, let go, grab another length, give it a tug until you feel it stretch a little bit, and I'll just keep doing that until I have as much wire as I need. And don't pull too hard because it will just snap right off. And so I got a bunch of straightened wire. I'm just going to clip this off, put it back in the spool, and then I'll move on. Okay guys, I've done this this is the 5th time. It's really hard for me to get this on video. I guess at the angle that I'm at, it must be different than I usually have it. But it's just like any other Clapton. You stick that lead wire or the Clapton wire down into the center of that drill and just try to get it caught. And so do a couple of wraps with that. And all I'm going to do is just get some of this lead wire wrapped up just to kind of hold it in place. It's going to give the rest of the wire some shape. And all I really need is that last like 3.5, 4 inches. So this first part, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get this wrapped up. And that creates some slack as we're twisting. And so that this wire can contract and expand while we get this other part as perfect as possible. And there's a couple techniques you can use. For the beginning, I would just hold this wire in the forefinger with the thumb and then light support on this wire, just to not any pressure at all, because that'll twist this whole thing up, but just basically there so that when the wire bounces as it's spinning, it has something to bounce off of and kind of keeps it in place. And once you get up here, that wire is going to start contracting in, and just let that happen. Once you're in that groove where it's going, you just let that wire contract in. And even if it pulls your fingers completely against this ribbon wire, just let that happen, because as long as it's in that groove and you're allowing your hand to move this way, it's going to wrap up just fine. It takes a little trust of the process, I guess, because it feels weird because you can't see it a lot of the times. But I'm going to go ahead and get going on this. And to correct, it's just like any other Clapton once it's getting going. If you overlap or something, you can hold pressure on this while putting the drill into the reverse direction. Okay, so you see at the end there, it gets a lot easier to get it nice and uniform. I did have one little area that's messed up, but off camera, if I have enough 36 gauge, I'm going to go ahead and prepare some more. But hopefully you get the general idea of how that's wrapped up. And then this one, by doing it that low speed at the beginning, it's not going to need much untwisting. And I'll show you some macro shots of this. Here's a couple wires. The first one on the bottom is the one that I just wrapped on the video. The one up top is the one that I wrapped off video. You'll notice at the ends there, they look pretty much the same. Nice and uniform. And then, so we get down to the bottom portion, you'll see there on the one on the bottom where it overlapped and I just kept going on the video. And then, all I'm saying is it's a lot easier to get these uniform if you just have it at the most natural angle for you. So when you're wrapping it, just make sure that you're doing it at an angle that feels comfortable for you, and just try to relax, similar to the fused Clapton. But I would relax even a little bit more and try not to freak out. Another wire that I did earlier, I caught a kink in the 36 and it twisted the whole thing up. And so if it ends up like this, you can still untwist that just like you would a fused Clapton. So don't just throw it away if you went through the trouble of making the wire and it ends up twisting up like that. You can definitely untwist that, and I'll show you how to do that right now. Okay, so hopefully what you're looking at when you're finished wrapping these up is something that looks similar to these two wires that are already nice and straight and didn't get twisted up on you. If you ended up accidentally twisting it up a little bit, I think I had luck just untwisting this with my fingers. Since the ribbon wire is thin enough, you can actually just kind of grab a little section, like a ½ an inch at a time, and just untwist it. And if it's not too severe, you can usually get enough of the twists out that you can still use this wire and it'll work just fine. Yep, got most of the twists out, so that's still a usable piece, but I'm going to go ahead and use these two here. So I'll grab that 24 gauge from earlier that I had straightened out. And all you do here, we're going to use the drill again to twist these two up. So I'm going to grab this guy. Just grab these. And what I like to do is get these on top of each other as good as I can. Into that. So that when, or you could, see if the drill chuck will catch onto both of them. But if it doesn't, what you probably have to do is get that 24 gauge positioned actually on top of the ribbon wire, like that, and then get that down in between the chuck of the drill and clamp down on them, and just go ahead and tighten it. And then check pulling them, make sure that neither one of these is going to just pull out of there. So you have a nice tight grip on both of those wires. That way when you're trying to twist it up, you don't get halfway twisted and then the wire just breaks on you or pops out of there and ruins your twist after you did all this work. So that's why you want to make sure, definitely just double check that these are nice and secure in there. And then get them as parallel as possible, just like you're doing any other twisted wire combo, and just grab them tightly. And again, I double check to make sure that both of these are not just going to pull out of there. That ribbon wire is actually moving more than I'm comfortable with, so I'm going to just kind of fold it over a little bit over that round wire and see if I can't just clamp down on them. Pull them taut. Yep, that's good. And then I'm just going to twist these up. just whichever direction you want to. I'm going to do clockwise. Just hold a lot of tension when you first start for sure, just to make sure they go uniformly. And once it starts going, just like any other twisted wire, allow this to contract in. And just try to keep an eye on it and just see if you can tell when these even out. I'm almost there to the maximum. I don't want to go too far or it'll break, and hopefully, you know, not in a weird spot that would waste the wire. So that's where I'm going to stop. And so support this while you let go of it. It'll untwist a little bit. I'm just going to clip the ends off. And I'll go ahead and show you what this wire looks like in the macro shot. So this is what your wire should basically look like. And hopefully it's pretty uniform throughout. You'll notice there are some gaps in parts of these twists, and that's okay because it's still going to do its job. You're still going to get the effect of that juice traveling underneath that wire, even if they're not completely together. Like this part is very uniform. But that's going to work just as well as that one that, like this area that's more spaced out. It's still going to work just as well. Obviously I like to get things as perfect as possible because, well, it looks nicer, but that's going to work just fine. And so I'll show you how to wrap up the coil. Nothing real special about wrapping up this coil. It's just like any of the other builds that I've done so far. This wire is a little bit springy, so you can torch it first if you want, and the way I do that is I use 2 pairs of pliers, and I hold the pliers here and here, and then just have the torch. It's a stationary torch, the one that I have, and I just hold tension on it while I pull it in front of the flame, and then I quench it in water. But I personally prefer to wrap coils when the wire has a little bit of springiness in it. Like, it makes it even more permanent every wrap you do when you're have it torched previous to wrapping it. But and what I noticed on these twisted wires is if you want all the different twists to line up in the patterns like you were seeing in the macro shots earlier, what you want to do is make sure that this wire, like when you're pulling it around, that it always stays in the same angle, in the same direction. If you let this twist, like say it twists clockwise or counterclockwise as you're wrapping it around, that also twists every individual twist in this wire and makes it so some of them are going to be misaligned. If that's not important to you, then just wrap it up however you want. But just to, so I do one wrap, let go of it, and try to hold tension on it, and try not to let that wire twist. And I mean, with this one, it's not just aesthetics to get those grooves to match up. It's easier to get the hot spots out when all the most uniform parts of the wire are touching each other. And so just get it as tight as you can, and it should hold its shape pretty well. And it looks like those are matching up pretty good, and I'm just going to do a 5 wrap. And let me go ahead and get an Addy and mount this guy on and show you how to get the hot spots out. Alright, this is the CLT version 2 plus or whatever by Infinite, and all I'm going to do is just stick this through these holes. And the way I've been doing these coils lately, especially with these larger coils that take up a lot of space on the deck, is I have the direction of the wrap going down and through that center post, and that makes it easier to get the wicks up into this portion from it having come around. Like if you had this part of it over here, it gets hard to get the wicks out and around and back in. That's why I've been doing it this way recently, is just because you can take the wick straight down into the deck. And then this one, you have space to take it over and around and down in there. And so I basically just have been getting this positive post lead in as far as I can, kind of holding it in place and then screwing it down. And I'm pretty hard on my atomizers, and I got this center post started spinning like within the third build I did on this thing. So if you have this atomizer, just take it kind of easy. Like, you'll notice that center post just spinning out. But it just bends back. And then I'll take the screwdriver out and I'll stick it in the other direction. And this is a 3/32 inch diameter screwdriver. And then I just kind of push this over and bend that kind of into place where I'm going to have it. And you'll notice to check for clearance of the top cap. And then while continuing to push pressure on that, I kind of wiggle these wires just to make sure that I have enough of it out and through. It looks like that's good. So then I'm just going to screw this, secure that negative connection. And it's basically in place where I want it, starting out. Alright, clip those guys off. And I like to still use the mechanical mod or box to fire up this coil when I'm getting the hotspots out, just because when you first start doing it, these guys are all touching, it's shorting out, and the resistance is going to be jumping around a lot. So if I don't want to risk frying my IPv3 with the resistance going up and down while the voltage is going, I don't know enough about it to be doing that right now. So I'm just going to start pulsing this, and you'll see it lighting up in weird spots, and very similarly to any other coil that you'd make. Just kind of wiggle it around to try to get any of those wires that are connecting to loosen up and let go of each other. So it's hot spotting down below. And I like to get as good contact as I can, and you can do that with pliers, like after firing it, letting go of the button. You can squeeze it together. But what I've been really enjoying recently is these ceramic tweezers, because you can squeeze it while you're firing it since they're non-conductive, and you can really set your coil nicely with them. That looks pretty good. Go ahead and wick it up. Alright, so we're sitting right at 0.28 ohms with a single coil. So you can imagine a dual would most likely be 0.14 to 0.16-ish range, just depending on what your posts are made of and how long the leads are going into those posts. So all I got here is some Japanese cotton, and I just rolled up the end on it. And I'm just going to slip it through there. I like to wick like this because it's really easy, it works well, and it looks nice. But everybody's got their own way of wicking, so whatever you want there. Cut those guys off. And pull this around, just stick it in. And just try to keep the fibers and the cotton aligned in their natural direction. I kind of bunched that one in there, but it'll still wick fine. That looks good. Turn the voltage down on this thing. Get it closer to a regular mechanical. 4.15. And let's see. Heats up nice and quick. And you can even see the juice just covering. That's interesting. So you can see the round wire, and remember from the macro shots how that heated up more quickly than the twisted wire. So you can actually see the juice boiling off of that. And then when you let go, you can see the ribbon wire feeding more juice onto that. So it's really acting as a wick. That's pretty cool. Well, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed it. And what I like to do to mount the second coil, since that first coil is in the way, and we got a 4-post atomizer here, or a 4-hole post atomizer, whatever you want to call it, and that coil is going to obviously get in the way of this wire when we stick it through. I like to kind of stick this through, get a general idea of where that wire is going to poke out the other side, and then kind of mark it, and then clip it off and try to get it at the right length. And these clippers work really well. Everyone always wonders where I get them. Just got them at Home Depot from the tool section. They're straight snips. They're like $13. They came in a pack with those pliers. And then kind of stick it through and see if it's the right length. And it looks like it is the right length. If it's too long, it'll poke through, and you'll actually, like, you can see that poking through on the other side. And you don't want it shorting out on that coil, so just get it to where it's as close as you can get it, like as far through the post as you can, without actually poking out that other side. And then we're just going to tighten this guy down. And the center post will spin. If you have a spinning center post, one thing you can do, if you can get a hold of it with some pliers, is to grab a hold of it while you're tightening this down. And that way the atomizer is not useless. You can still get some life out of it before it just kaputs on you. Should be good. And then just do the same thing that you did on the other side. That looks like that's in the right spot. Nice and tight. And that way you don't have to worry about trying to get that other coil out of the way and trying to snip that off with that other coil there. It'll just be ready to go. And then to get the hotspots out, you just do the same thing. Just make sure you're using really good batteries, high drain, 30 amp, or the Samsung 20Rs, 25Rs are really good too, or the eFest 35 amps will work just fine as well. But don't put just random batteries in here. This is going to really stress the batteries with 2 coils, especially while you're getting the hotspots out of this one. But that's how I do my dual coils on this style atomizer. Hope that helped a little.